Hello, everyone. Welcome to Snap Take. This is Glazer. I'm pseudo back. This is actually a pre-record while I'm in London, but we know what the spotlight caches are, so have no fear. We are able to go over all of the great stuff that we can do with Silver Samurai and take a look at both Kitty Pryde and Spider-Man 2099. And we're going to, as we do this, discuss whether it is worth getting these cards, whether they're worth your hard-earned tokens and hard-earned spotlight caches. But before we go, let's start with why you should subscribe. What we do on this channel is we bring you at least 2 brand new decks every weekday, decks you won't find anywhere else, decks that keep you ahead of the meta so that you can snap more effectively, get infinite, get your infinity orders, and succeed in your goals in Marvel Snap. If you subscribe, you also get to help us out. It's nice to help others, and it really helps us grow when you subscribe, when you like, when you comment. So please, if you find any value in this kind of video, consider doing so. I'd personally, honestly, really appreciate it. Thank you. Our card is the Silver Samurai. Silver Samurai is a Series 5 card, 6,000 tokens. I was convinced this was going to be a 3,000 token Series 4. Each player discards the lowest power card from their hand. Now, I think this card is going to be straight up. X23 is great. I think Decken has been good. Deathstrike sucks, but whatever. I think Silver Samurai is going to become a meta card. I think there's a lot of reasons for this. People are absolutely sleeping on discards the lowest power card from an opponent's hand, hitting a opponent's Darkhawk, hitting an opponent's Iron Man, messing up opponent's plays in that way is going to be extremely powerful, and you can use that ability to enable your own stuff. I think this card is going to be great. I think that 4-5 is the kind of stat line they stick on cards. So like 4-5, 4-6, and 5-8 are the stat lines they stick on your good stuff cards, cards that end up like meta and that do real work. We're going to look at samurai builds down the line, and I'm going to give you my recommendations at the end of the video, well, several smaller recommendations throughout, but there's other stuff we have to do before we can make a final decision on whether to use our caches and tokens on this card. First, we only have 3 announced variants for this card. Usually there's 3 that are announced and then a couple more that like have no release date announced. We've got this chibi one, which is super rare. I think it's a cute chibi one, and I don't like chibi art, but I don't think it's worth 1,200. Like, I'm not spending 1,200 for chibi. This is my single favorite of the mech variants. There's been a mech variant for every card this month. It's gorgeous. It's Silver Samurai as a kaiju, sort of like towering over a city. I love it. I think it's great. Not as good as the Nicola one. That's rare, so that's only 700. That's going to be the one I'm aiming for the second that one shows up in my shop. It is mine. I'm really excited for that Silver Samurai. I think the Nicola one is gorgeous. I personally would not buy Silver Samurai or not based on art, but I know that's not always the case for some of you. So I offer you this information. And while we're talking about art, we also have the other 2 spotlight caches. We have Kitty Pryde in a wedding dress with Lockheed, and we have this Spider-Man 2090. I don't like this Kitty Pryde. I don't know why. Outside of Lockheed, there's nothing about it that especially says Kitty Pryde to me. Like, the makeup doesn't feel Kitty Pryde. Nothing about this, again, except Lockheed, who doesn't even look super Lockheedy, says Kitty Pryde. I think that there's better regular variants. This is, however, the best Spider-Man 2090 game. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. Is Spider-Man 2099 good? Well, that's debatable, and we're going to talk a lot more about that later in the video. But if you have 2099, well, this is like just an absolutely sick variant, right? Like, I think this is gorgeous. Synergies with synergies of Silver Samurai. We've got the discard cards, notably Colleen Wing, Black Bolt, and Modoc. You can use Colleen to discard another card from your hand, and Black Bolt to discard a card from your opponent's hand. Both the lowest cost, not power. And Modoc will chuck your whole hand, so you have no real downside at that point for Silver Samurai if you top deck it, right? But those are fine synergies. I think that the synergies are important, but like the really important synergies are the cards that benefit from discard, and the cards that really benefit from the discard of Silver Samurai are Swarm, Dakin, X23, Wolverine, and Stature. Swarm, discarding Swarm will obviously give you, and it's not easy to make 3 the lowest power card in your hand, but getting 2 free O3s from it is an excellent benefit. Decken himself is obviously not what you want to discard, but that Muramasa Shard in hand for 1 power is pretty easy to discard, as are both X23 and Wolverine. It'll give you a 2/4 on the board if you discard Wolverine for free, and it'll give you a 1/2 with an extra energy if you discard X23. And finally, any of these discards will make Stature a 1/6, which is a crazy, crazy good stat line. And the arch nemesis of this card, the card that makes me worry about Silver Samurai, is if Rock Slide is still all over the meta, you'll have rocks in your hand fairly often, and rocks will be the lowest power card in your hand. That means you're not getting your benefit from discarding something else. We're going to feature a few different Silver Samurai lists today. If you would like to build another or build other decks, go to the Marvel Snap Zone Discord. There's a section called Podcast Chat with the Hosts. I hang out in there. I'm perfectly happy, and so would the other members of that Discord, to help you build some really cool decks. This is the deck I've been waiting for with Silver Samurai. I think this deck is going to be amazing. It basically takes the move package and says, what if I also run a nice discard package to disrupt my opponent's hands, right? So what you'd like to do here is discard either X23 or the Muramasa Shard. You're also fine later in games discarding cards you wouldn't play like Jeff. You're almost always going to be able to discard something of value here. You can, if you're finding that that's not the case, there is a reasonable way to just add Swarm and you'll be fine, right? You replace Jeff with Swarm and you're fine. So you've got the general package of gaining power from Craven, Silk, Miles, and Captain Marvel. In addition, all of that package makes your Miles Morales cost 1. That ends up great in and of itself. You also have Dakin, 3/8, amazing tempo card here, right? And you have extra energy to help pull that off because of X23. Meanwhile, Silver Samurai and Black Bolt both mess up your opponent's hand. They help screw your opponent's plans up and let you know exactly what they have and what they'll be doing. If you can tell what they have and what they'll be doing, well, you can determine where to distribute your late game power with cards like Stature. I think this is going to be a tier 1 deck. I think this is going to be an amazing deck, and this is the first place I want to look at for Silver Samurai. This is why I am getting the card. And like bluntly, I'm a content creator. Because I'm getting the card doesn't mean you should, right? So like I get all the cards because I need to test them for viewers to like provide the best experience. Doesn't mean you should, but this is the deck I'm testing first because I think this is going to be awesome. Our next deck is Silver Samurai Smash. This is a similar deck to the last one. I think that this is the basic home of it. You'll see that I'm running X23 a lot in these, and this one wants to say, okay, so now I've got discard, what else can I do to gain a bunch of power? And what else you can do to gain extra power is destroy. Carnage is a really good rate card. Wolverine and X23, as they die again and again, give you benefits. Venom can amplify those benefits. That can obviously 3/8, again, just a good stat line. Basically, mid-range stats is what I'm seeing for Silver Samurai. That's where Marvel Snap often lives. Those are very often the best decks, and I think Silver Samurai fits right into a lot of versions of that. Next one is No Hand, and this one is trying to take advantage of Wong Absorbing Man and Silver Samurai with Black Bolt, and basically discard a bunch of cards from opponent's hands. The only card that you're really discarding from your hand, you'll get X23 ones, and after that, like you're hopefully getting Swarm a couple times, right? Like Swarm will be a 3 in your hand, the lowest power, and should get hit relatively often, assuming you can get Zabu out of your hand, and like Zabu into Silver Samurai seems great. Zabu into Wong into Silver Samurai seems great. Zabu into Wong into Silver Samurai into Absorbing Man seems busted. You're going to make 1,000 swarms and basically chuck their whole hand. You can Black Bolt on top of Wong just fine, discarding a bunch of cards from their hand, making yourself have a nice cheap stature for the end of the game. I think that this has a lot of potential, and it's a new deck type. I don't think this archetype has existed until Silver Samurai exists, but I think it can be scary powerful, as you get benefit from discarding cards and always have more cards to play, but your opponent is basically left top decking and hoping for the best. You should be able to discard the majority of their hand unless they're playing 1 card a turn with this deck. Final thoughts. Does Silver Samurai look worth it? Well, okay. First, Do you have at least 4 spotlight caches? If you don't have 4 spotlight caches, please do not try and open spotlight caches for a new card. Unless you are also missing one of the other cards and you basically have no bad hits, you do not want to try and open spotlight caches. How do you feel about Alioth? And will you have 4 spotlight caches by then? Alioth is coming in. So next week will be new season, right? So that'll be our new season pass card Loki, which will mean that there is no whatever. Will you have 4 spotlight caches? Assuming you get about 1.5 spotlight cache a week. Will you have 4 spotlight caches by the time Alioth comes out? I think Alioth is must. Did you get X23? I think Silver Samurai works amazingly well with X23, so that's an important combination. If you got X23, that should make you more likely to get Silver Samurai. Do you have 6,000 or more tokens? If you have the tokens, this is something you can consider buying. I strongly urge you to spend as many of your tokens as you can on Series 4 cards and 2 cards next month, both Ravonna Renslayer and Michael Mobius are Series 4. So you can get 2 of those for the value of 1 Silver Samurai. Is that worth it? Next week, in addition, Jeff will be in Spotlight Caches. Tell you right now, I don't care how good Silver Samurai is. I don't care how good you think X23 has been. Jeff is probably still just better and more versatile. Make sure you're getting Jeff if you can afford it. Is Jeff better than Alioth? Probably not, but maybe, because Jeff is one of the best cards of the game. So, okay. And lastly, do you have Kitty Pryde in Spider-Man 2099? I'm assuming most people watching this video have Kitty, because they gave Kitty to everyone at one point who was playing at the time. And if you're late enough in the game to really be considering this, you probably have Kitty. If you don't have Kitty, Jeff, and Alioth are like seemingly like, well, we know Kitty and Jeff, right? And Silk last week are like top tier cards. So they're worth having. 2099 is a whatever card. Like, it's fine-ish. I think it's good. I think it's better than almost everyone does. But like, it's 3,000 tokens and not necessarily worth the extra that you would need to get it. But if you need Kitty and Silver Samurai looks good to you, that might help alter your decision. These are the questions to ask. We are going to keep going, and at the end, I will still give you a final recommendation. Our next card is Kitty Pryde. She is a Series 5 card, 6,000 tokens, but she was free if you were playing when she was re-released. She was originally released bugged, for anyone who doesn't know. She was pulled from the game, and when they re-released her, they just gave her to everybody for all the trouble. Kitty is when this returns to your hand, +1 power, returns at the start of each turn. She used to be a 1/0 that got +2 power, and she was completely broken and in all the best decks. She's been nerfed into something more reasonable, but even something more reasonable is still, like Zabu, one of the very best cards in the game. Kitty is must-have. So, like, you should be either spending, if you don't have Kitty, you should be spending and using caches for her. And then you have a really tough choice to make, again, with Jeff. The first Kitty deck is I'm going to show is D-Money. D-Money is a phenomenal deck builder and player. This is his old bounce deck. I basically added Forge for Medusa and Hawkeye for Ant-Man because both were buffed, and I think they're better now. Being able to multi-use Forge, being able to use Forge on Kitty is phenomenal, right? And Hawkeye can easily be a 1/7, whereas Ant-Man basically tops out as a 1/4. This deck is super strong. A lot of the mid-range stuff in the game really, really, really struggles with this kind of bounce. So if you're struggling with mid-range and you have Kitty, this is a deck for you. Next up, we have Lamby's Confusion deck. This is, as far as most people are concerned, the best deck in the game. Hopefully you got Silk last week, or earlier, as the case may be. Basically, use Angela Craven with Kitty and Silk. You ping-pong Silk around, growing Angela, using Silk to boost Craven. You make sure all the locations are favorable for you, and you disrupt your opponent with cards like Spider-Man and Shang, and then you win with your mid-range power. You basically just put enough power in every lane to win. One of the best decks in the game, wins major tournaments, needs Kitty Pryde, needs Silk. We have Devilish's Shuri Cat, and other people like TLSG are sharing versions of this, but the basic gist of this deck is that you want to get Kitty and Forge or Hulkbuster Kitty, play Kitty a lot, Shuri Kitty on 5. So let's say you've got a Kitty with a, like, Hulkbuster, right? So you go Forge into Kitty, you go Kitty on 1, now it's a 1/3, right? Then you go Forge on 2, then you go Kitty on 3. Now Kitty is a 1 +3, so 1/6, right? And then on turn 4, you add a Hulkbuster to that. Now she's a 111. Then you go Shuri and Kitty, or yeah, 112 because she's getting the extra power. So, and then you Shuri Kitty, and now she's a 124. And then last turn, you drop Kitty with Taskmaster, and you have 224 power cards at the end of the game. Works out real well. Deck's very, very powerful and very hard to counter. Kitty return to hand all the time makes her super hard to counter. And this is Devilish's version. I've seen other versions that run cards like Polaris. Um, I like this version slightly better. And, y'all should be checking out Devilish over on Twitter and Twitch. Devilish is a fantastic streamer. Awesome person. Friend of the channel. Check out Devilish. Our next card is Spider-Man 2099, Series 4, which means 3,000 tokens. First time this moves to a location, destroy an enemy card there. And for the uninitiated, this only works once. Doesn't matter if it's bounced, nothing else matters. This moves once, it destroys something, its effect is done for the game. People think of this as a destroy card are, I think, mistaken. I've had a lot of success with this card. I had infinite with this card this season. This is a power card. Think of this card as a Darkhawk. You need to enable Darkhawk by doing rocks and such. You need to enable Spider-Man 2099 by moving it once. And ideally, you're killing something with 4 or 5 power, and then it operates as a 411. And a 411 is a phenomenal base rate, right? Honestly, 4/8's a pretty good base rate if you can get that kind of kill. So I think Spider-Man 29 is an underrated card, but it is not a pull this week as a Series 4 card. I think Series 4 cards should generally not be pulls for these spotlight caches. Still, let's say you're opening for Kitty or Samurai. You happen to open 2099. Let's look at a couple decks. The first, this is my infinite deck this season. I call it Thanos 2099. Bohei, a Marvel Snap Zone writer of great renown. Awesome person too. Built this deck, and I took it and immediately rolled with it and hit infinite a little bit before moves started being everywhere. So basically, what you do is you use Vulture and Spider-Man 2099 as really big tempo power pieces with Iron Fist and Ghost Spider, right? Like, you can then kill all your ones. You get a bunch of power for your Vulture and 2099. You get extra benefit because now your death is cheap. And like, let's say you've got an 8 to 13 power Vulture, and you've got a Spider-Man 29 that gave you like 8 to 11 power because you've got Fist, Ghost Spider, and Cloak, right? So you've gotten like 20-ish power out of your 3 and 4 drop. And at that point, you can choose where to drop a card like Death or Thanos at the end of the game to win, or you can go for a Heimdall, move them and a Dagger to gain a bunch more power. This deck is sweet. It works really, really well, even in the current meta. It's bad against other Thanos builds, but it's good against most other things. Like, you manage to hit a Kraven with that 2099, it feels real good. It's also often pretty easy to hit a Zabu. This is a deck I made just for this video. I took the Safety Blade deck that I love so much, the Moot version that he made of Lambies that runs Wave, and I basically said, so what if we just used that package with 2099? That's all this deck is. It says, I'm going to do that power thing with Vulture and 2099. I'm going to use Kraven to grab some extra power with them, Jeff and Silk, and then at the end of the game, because I've gotten so much tempo, I'm going to Wave, and then I can either Heimdall to move everything, or Arrow to pull everything to a lane that I know I'm going to win and or lose and waste their last turn play. It's a get-ahead deck that then relies on tempo to close out the game. I think that this is going to be really good, but I'll be completely honest, it's going to need some testing. But the core of this, like the base concept here, is very powerful. And should I open this week? Probably not. I think Silver Samurai is great and likely going to be one of the best cards. But Silk last week, Jeff next week, and Alioth 2 weeks from now have greater value. Unless you also need Kitty, I think this is likely a skip week unless you're the type of person who has an abundance of stuff saved in every card. Because again, I do think Silver Samurai is going to be great. Like Legion was great, right? I don't think it's gonna be as good as Legion. I don't think it's gonna be as good as Spider-Ham, but I think it's like in the same realm as those cards, as one of the like better good stuff cards around it once we learn to build around it. But A, that's gonna be a learning process, and B, I don't think it's as outright powerful or necessary as Jeff, Alioth, and previously Silk. So I don't think this is an open, but I do think there is real value here. And if you need kitty, my answer changes to yeah, you should probably go get yourself a kitty. All right, that's all I've got today. Thanks so much for watching. Tomorrow we've got one more guest video, and then I'll be back full time regularly with Thursday's video when we are hopefully getting some OTA goodness. Peace, y'all.